Peace, 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 family. How's everybody doing? A little bit late today with this live, but I had been feeling really like my energy had been zapped. And I was like, well, shoot, I'm not going to be able to get any of this done. And I was sleeping. And then I thought I had a class last night and I still hadn't finished my homework. And I woke up to an email stating that the class wasn't this Wednesday. It's next Wednesday due to the holidays. They gave us an additional week off. And I was like, thank you, Lord Jesus. Oh my God, I think it was really overwhelming me because I didn't want to go into class unprepared, but I probably undoubtedly would have. But once I got that email, I was like, oh, well, I get to get back to what I want to be doing here. Not that I don't want to be in the class, by the way, just I wanted to get this Neptune direct video out. And I have some other stuff that I really would like to get out. And I think between what I wanted to do and what I had to do were just clashing, and it zapped my energy. So anyway, with that being said, I'm going to do this Neptune. We're going to talk about Neptune going direct today. I have done a video about this in-depth when it went in retrograde, so if you want to just go back, check out that video. It's also just really good to go back so that you can know what's going on with you throughout these transits. You know what I mean? So you can see, are you on track? Do you need to be doing a little bit more work? Or, is everything good? So definitely go back and check that out. But also what I would say is the astrology for 2022. Oh God, there's like 4, maybe 5 videos. So I'm trying to see if I can do them in maybe 3. But I don't want them to be any longer than an hour. That's what I'm working on now with that. So I'll stop my first one with that and I'll post that for like Friday or something. And then I'll keep posting and doing them day by day until I get them all out. And we also just have like a lot of things coming up that need to be covered with the astrology for December. So we have the eclipse coming up on the 4th. I'm so glad I got ahead of all of that. And but as I was doing a lot of the astrology for 2022, what I realized is, as always, this is really nothing new, but as always, what happens is that we have a bunch of different, how can you say it, transits that started this year, and they still lead into next year that have some remnants. And I'll be speaking about those. Now, I'm not going to include those in the astrology of 2022. I'm really going to put them in the December astrology and talk about them from that point of view. And I also already have the full moon in Gemini, even though that is not an eclipse. For now, eclipse season is over as far as whether they're happening or not, but the energy is still there, right? So you could still be feeling a lot of the energy, but for the most part, they're over. And so December is going to be a pretty tough month, family. It's going to be pretty heavy because we are finalizing and wrapping things up. And it's going to get intense. So I won't cover that here. I'll talk more about that. I'll be doing posts more about that throughout the month. And so I say all that to say that I feel like I'm going to be overwhelming you guys with videos, and I don't want to do that, but I also just think that it's really good to have the information. So whenever you get ready to listen to this stuff, at least you'll have it. You know what I mean? All right, so I've talked enough about that. yeah, so let's get into it. So Neptune goes direct today, actually. And so it's got to get its momentum up before we really start to feel it. But I'm almost positive that had a lot to do with why my energy was feeling zapped, because it's standing still now. You know, that energy is still. And once it starts to move in the direct motion, the energy will begin to pick up slowly by surely every day. And so Neptune has been in Pisces since 2011, and it'll be there until 2026. So Neptune rules water, liquid, oil, pollution, toxicity, leaks of information, illusions, delusions, dreams, fogginess, uncertainty, drugs, and pharmaceuticals, just to name a few. And I think on the world stage, we're going to see a lot more about COVID, this new variant. I don't know if anybody's heard of that. I would be remiss if we didn't hear about some new lockdowns for people getting a little bit irate, especially out of the country. I know that they're feeling this a lot more than we are here. They're literally fighting for their freaking rights over there. Although, I will say it is happening here. I have heard remnants of stories where if you haven't had the shot and you don't have your papers, there are certain things that you can't attend, right? And so if you have any plans to go out for anything for the holidays and you don't have your shot, they're saying that you can't go into these places and enjoy the festivities with everyone else. So maybe we'll hear a lot more about that. I even think that we can start to hear a lot more about secret information coming out about the truth about this, which I'm hoping for, because if that happens, then at least this way we can have a different conversation about this and how to move forward and have more resolutions than mandates. Now, again, this could be my Jupiter optimism, glass half full hopes and dreams, especially with Neptune moving forward. Now, we're really going to be lit about all of this kind of being hopeful, and it's really what most people might see as naivety, because the truth of the matter is it doesn't allow the government to be who they are without this fight, this argument, this discussion. So we'll see. I would be interested in seeing how this plays out. But I am hoping for the latter, because then we can have more honest conversations about what's in these drugs and just making sure people have the right information, the truth, and so that they can make the decisions on their own. And at least if anything happens, at least they know, I made the best decision for me, type thing. That's how I feel about that. Let's see. And then the oil, right? I definitely think that we can see some more information about oil prices. I know London was going through it with the oil. It's skyrocketed off the roof. And then I just heard a couple of days ago, California now, their gas prices, people are saying it's too high. It's ridiculous. So I'd imagine that we'll be hearing some stuff about that. And so we'll see about those kinds of things there. And maybe even some new drugs around this COVID stuff. That's what I'm saying. Pisces also rules your imagination, creativity, spirituality, unconditional love, retreats, and without the drugs, the psychedelics and such, the relaxants and such. I think actually relaxants are more scorpionic than Neptunian. Neptunian is more psychedelic, more upbeat, happy type energy. But what I will say is not related to the drug. I think people could be feeling that very upbeat, pie in the sky type energy now that Neptune is direct. So, people's creativity can be coming back, helping with their imagination, putting the two together. I thought of like the film festival. Now, I know it's not film festival season, but what I'm thinking is that people will begin to work on projects for such things like that. And or what we can really see is movies and other creative projects that people might have been working on while Neptune was in retrograde. We can see, the results of whatever they may have been working on behind the scenes type deal. I can see that being a part of it. But this could be like new reality TV shows coming out or hearing about them. Like more ghost stories, movies, sci-fi, alien. These are all covered here with Pisces. Even like ocean thingies, things about the ocean. If it's not movies, it doesn't have to necessarily be movies. It could be projects, creative projects about these types of things. Anything about the ocean, anything. We could be hearing more information about that. Oh, and also I forgot to cover in the top one, floods. We can hear about a lot more floods now, weather-wise. So just be mindful of that. But, people wanting to do more things like that. So this is like, when you do the facials, I feel like they have things that are related to relaxation, things that are related to water. I just, at the tippity top of my head, this is not coming to my mind, but, any kind of like self-care type things. Oh, I know, baths, swimming. There it goes. My memory came back. Hot baths, swimming, things of that nature that you might want to invest in. Taking a trip by boat, things of that nature. Okay, doing things like that could come up right now. I even think like dance, photography. Again, just going back to the directors, making movies, more YouTube stuff, creative things coming out, gaming even, just people getting their creative juices back, so those things will be more in the forefront right now. I'd especially say if you've been feeling down from Neptune being in retrograde, because that jovial upbeat was gone, you could do these things to get back in touch with your higher self or your happier self or that happier energy. And then your spirituality practices, of course, right? If you're studying it, if you're wanting to learn more about it or just dive deep, it doesn't even have to be studying like you're taking some type of class. You could be just doing this in your free time. If these are things that are taking place for you, this would be an awesome time to dive deep into your spirituality, whatever that is for you, or even going on a spiritual retreat. These are things like people going out and doing like the ayahuasca. So you take something to help you remember something, or like the past life regression stuff, or even Reiki comes up here. You know, all these types of things here, any kind of spiritual practice can be very beneficial to your energetic levels at this time. And then all of these things that'll be coming up throughout this time will be strongly linked to the Neptune-Jupiter conjunction in April of 2022. And I'll be talking about that in the astrology for 2022 shortly. It's definitely not the first video, but it'll be one of the videos. And then also transiting Neptune is opposing natal Neptune in the U.S. chart. So if you remember, I did a whole video on the Pluto return chart. Now, I don't think I covered this particular transit, but everything here that I'm saying is like a mini horoscope for what United States of America as a country and their birth chart can be experiencing. And we can see that for February is when that that energy goes, it hits direct. And then Uranus goes direct in January 18th of 2022, which is, I think, a day before the Taurus eclipse. And I'll be talking a little bit about both Uranus and the eclipse in the 2022 astrology. And we're going to get into a lot of information. I think you guys will really like what I've come up with, what I've found. So this is going to be a lot of momentum, a lot of forward movement, you know. And so I'm really looking forward to that. Also, the Sagittarius eclipse coming up on the 4th is on the ascendant of the U.S. chart, and which indicates changes over time. And then the Pluto is at the exact degree during this time when we had the exact degree it was at when we had the 9/11 plane crash, which I thought was very, very, very interesting. Now, I don't assume that anything is going to happen. It could, but these transits almost never repeat. Actually, I've never found them to, even if they are at the exact, they never have reached the same conclusion or outcome that you see on the global stage. So it was just an interesting fact. But Neptune is in service to Pisces. Pisces ideals for transcendence and unity. Unity is believed to be inclusion for people who have been marginalized. I mean, really for everybody, but especially for people who have been marginalized, disadvantaged, impoverished, the underdog, the oppressed, and the victimized by the larger culture. Because Pisces is in its own sign, there's a doubling of this effect. And I think we've all really been kind of seeing that. I think we can all agree that that's pretty true. There's a heightened sense of compassion and release of suffering for those. So we can see a lot of these things die down now. You know, I'm trying to stay away from the negative, but I want to be honest. And the honest God truth is that the government really doesn't have our best interest at heart. So when I hear stuff like this, I'm always reluctant to say that, because I don't want to sell false hope, right? Which is the lower vibrations, or what was the energy of Pisces, Neptune and Pisces retrograde. You know, selling fake hope to people. And I'm going to get into a little bit about about that. This Neptune is such a hard energy to describe. It's not the easiest to talk about. And so I really have to be careful and watch my words. Trigger warning, family. If we move any further into this, I need to make it very, 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 very clear that these, you know, Pisces is a heavy sign. So these discussions and things that we're going to be talking about, they're not really easy to hear, you know. So please feel free to listen from this point on at your own, you know, if you so choose to. Yeah, there's going to be a heightened sense of compassion and release of suffering, especially for those people. I think we'll see. And I hope, right, that we see that. The problem with that is it doesn't really hold those people accountable for the reasons why they're in those situations. You know what I mean? Because they may have been marginalized, but everyone still needs to be doing and acting on their own 2 feet, you know? So this kind of leads to all of these social groups and protests, which are not effective ways of resolving issues. And it leaves us vulnerable to a class of people who really benefit off of that vulnerability. I'm trying to think of some really good examples, like the borders, for example. I don't really watch the news. I don't really know what's going on, but I've heard things here and there. And from what I understand, Biden has let the people in the borders in. And this is great, right? Because we don't want to see people in that situation, you know, trying to get to better, and people are blocking them out. However, what it does to the country as a whole, as a society, is it allows Biden and the political party to use them as pawns for their politics and Democrats and voting. And I don't really know if people are quite aware of that. And so when you have situations like this, for people who are coming here may not be well versed in American law and understanding, what happens is they don't really care about the law or the understanding. They're just grateful that they were able to get come to a place where they feel that they're going to get some kind of benefit from it. And so they're going to do whatever the government asks them to do. You know, and that's not to be said as a negative or not. I hope that people are hearing the real message and what it is I'm saying here, because then the people who already live here, who are or may be hip, you know, then what happens is that's where you get the divide and conquer, the separation. You know, we've been here for a while. We're seeing people get things that we should have access to and we don't. And they're seeing us as suffering and like, why aren't you doing better? You've been here type. You know what I mean? Then there's that whole argument between the two. And this is what they do. You know, this is what this country does to us as a society. They kind of do things to put us against each other. Meanwhile, they're still passing laws that they know they ain't got no damn right passing because it's not doing anybody any good. And we're not really in a position to fight with them because we're too busy, you know, either trying to make it or get over, or, you know, feeling sorry for ourselves or victimized, you know, these kind of things here. And so I hope that makes a really good point. We could also have seen this in the Mike Brown situation. Now, this might be a little touchy for people because I need to make myself very clear that I am not taking sides on any of this. To be quite honest, family, at this point, the way I feel about this country, y'all already know. I feel like everything's a setup and I don't know who to trust. I don't trust these people. But, you know, suffice it to say, the Mike Brown situation, quote, I'm using my quotes over here, my fake quotes over here, like, that he was stealing something. An altercation came out of that when the police tried to apprehend him. And that one thing led to another, and it just ended up being a really bad situation. But then you have, the socialist groups who see this as, he was just a kid, or, I don't remember the whole situation, whatever they say when they do in their social protests, which again, I'm not taking away from the idea of what it is they are portraying. What I'm really focusing and narrowing in on is the issue with begging a people who don't really care about you on a situation that we as people should be strong enough to deal with on our own. And so where are the real resolutions here? Because it's not protesting, and what are we doing to build up our community so that our children, our people don't have to steal? And I don't want to hear, oh, we can't do that and it's impossible, because it's not. There's possibilities in everything, but we have to be able to educate ourselves, be knowledgeable about what's going on. And when they have these kind of things that come up that could potentially put us in situations where we feel like we have to protest, if we had better unity within our culture and a system to help one another, they wouldn't be able to use us in these vulnerable states to keep us in this lower vibration where we feel hopeless and we feel like we need to ask them for something that we can do ourselves. And we've got a lot of work to do. Of course, it's going to take time and we're going to struggle for a little bit, but we'd be better off in a position like so than dependent on these people, because they really don't care about us, family. They really, 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 truly don't. But, that's why utopia doesn't work. So if you've been listening to me for a while and following me for a while, I've talked about how I feel like this energy ultimately, even though this could be pretty tough, is eventually going to get us to a place where we can get to a utopia. And I remembered watching this on Charmed. I can't remember what video exactly it was that I was talking about when I had this conversation, but what I was saying, I was using the example of how they discussed utopia and how they had to get us to agree with even having a utopia. And I forget who I was listening to. I was listening to this guy talk about this Neptune energy, and I really, really liked his perspective. And I can't remember word for word exactly what it was, but what he was describing was like the reason why utopia doesn't work is because there's not an equal give and take. So on the higher vibration of Neptune, I want to use the example of, like, how they have those ghost movies, and all the ghost movies are, it's the same storyline, right? Somebody moves in a house, the ghost haunts them every night at 12. They come and, until, the person actually asks, what is it do you want me to do? And then essentially their bones get dug up, and then that person ends up doing the research about their story, and then they get some kind of release, and there's this forgiveness that's willing, has the opportunity to take place, because now they can forgive the situation. Real forgiveness starts here, right? When you take account of telling their story, and they're set free in a sense, in a way, and there's kind of this like give and take process. That's how I felt about it when I was assessing the situation and listening to the story. The same way you do for your altar. This is the energy is one and the same when I think of spirituality and what it means to have an altar. A lot of the times people have altars for very many reasons, but for the most part, I feel like it's about you asking a higher power some questions that you need answers to, you need help with, some kind of support in that maybe perhaps you weren't able to get from another person, or whatever the situation may be. And you give the altar something to get an answer, and they give you answers, and now you are this enlightened being who has spiritual information from an enlightened being, and you're living out their story. You are the proof that they still exist in some way, shape, or form. You know what I mean? That they are helping us, and they like that reciprocation, and so it should be, right? In a perfect world, I guess you could say, right? And on a deeper level, that's how the spirit world works. There has to be some kind of reciprocation. And so I say all that to say, until we get to a point where somebody's going to tell the impoverished and the marginalized and the disadvantaged and the underdog and the oppressed and the victimized story, the truth, right? The true story, is then when we all really start to be able to heal and forgive and move on to start to do some real some problem solving and handling these situations. And until we live in a world like so, right? Because remember, I can't use the example that I want in saying this, but with that Jupiter and Pisces energy, you have to remember this is all going to be super heightened. And Jupiter is the actual ruler of religion and spirituality in that way, even universal law and a higher power. And a sense where I feel like, it's saying in a perfect world, this is how things should be, right? This is what we really go to church for, right? And there should be some kind of reciprocal information. And until we get back to that, we don't get the utopia that we are ultimately on our way to. That's how I really, really, truly feel. And so we got to go through this process of, get into those deeper emotions. I think about people who are in AA and the constant stories of pain, or people who are abused and their abuser is now gone and they don't have the opportunity to get that release off of their chest. And, and how do you do that but through the spirit realm? I think, what was this? Did this happen? I think this happened back in 2011 when Neptune went into Pisces. That story about the church, all black church, where the white boy went in there and shot everybody up while they were in prayer. And they still loved him and embraced him. This is unconditional love. This is Neptune and Pisces at its finest hour, showing us how things really could be. Although I would have to say the shooting wouldn't exist. But what I'm really describing here is the love that we have for one another, because there's a reciprocal back and forth of love. There's an understanding of truth and honesty, when it's safe to be vulnerable, right? When it's safe to be vulnerable. But yeah. So I feel like I can go on and on and on about this. I'm always trying to challenge myself to come up with different ways to have these kinds of conversations. I hope that what I said hadn't offended anyone and it made perfect sense. And I really hope that we are taking this information and finding how that relates to us in our birth chart and using that to be on the up and up, you know, heal your issues at any given chance. It's not always easy. It takes years sometimes. I'm not trying to force it, but being cognizant of it is the first step. You know, open your heart. And I feel like that's the first step to allowing a lot of the change that I think we really, really all want to get to eventually.